Have you ever admired those cute sculpted fairy dolls and wished you could make one yourself but didn't know where to start? If so, I have a product, a kit, with instructions that you might find helpful. Hey there, creative people, Sandy here with another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. So when I recently saw that April at makingfairies.com was putting out Sculpt Boxes, I was intrigued, and she sent me one to review. It's a pretty clever idea. Each month there's one project that you get all the supplies and instructions for, all sent to you in a box, just like all the boxes that are so popular these days. The one she sent me is Flower Pixies. One of the things I love about this project is that April made one and her friend Sherry made one, and you get instructions from both of them. That's really helpful because while their projects are very similar, do have slightly different approaches, and it's nice to see that. And I'll get into more of that in a bit. So what you get in the box is some DVDs. You also get access to this same instruction plus more, and I'll talk more about that in a minute too, online. So you get the two DVDs. On these two DVDs, I believe this one is an hour long, and I think this one is 2¼ hours long. So you get a lot of instruction. Some of it's redundant, but it's great to have up in front of you as you're working so you can refer to it. By the way, you'll find April on YouTube. Her channel is Aprilian. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Aprylian. Now in the box, one thing you get is a big chunk of Pro Sculpt polymer clay. I'm really excited about using this. April and a couple other doll artists that I'm familiar with swear by Pro Sculpt, and I've wondered if some of my frustration in sculpting comes because I'm using the wrong clay. So I'm excited, and this is enough to make a lot of these dolls. So once you get the hang of it, you can make a bunch more. And then in the box, you also get a whole bunch of materials for making your doll. Now, I will have to say, I would have found it really helpful if they had had a supply list explaining what the things are. For example, in her YouTube video, April mentions this product, and she says she'll tell us more about it, but she never really does, not in any of the videos I've watched. Now, I did watch all of the DVDs, but then there were many of the same ones online, and there might be another one where she talks more about this, but I didn't have time to watch it. I watched 3¼ hours of the DVDs. You get wire to make your armature as well as some foil tape. And this was one thing when I was watching the DVD, there were no explanations for how to make the armature. It just suddenly appeared. But online there are directions, and you can also download this. This I printed out and just cut out. And Sherry shows how to use that and the lengths to cut these and how to wrap it to make the armature for your little pixie, which is about 5 inches tall. So that's helpful, and of course this is information you can use in future projects for making armatures. I've made armatures different ways. This is a good way, so it's good to just add them all to your toolkit. This is batting for wrapping your doll. Again, Sherry shows how to do this. April and Sherry both show how to use the clay in sculpting a head and the hands. Sherry shows how to sculpt boots and also how to use this bias tape to make little cloth covers for the boots, which is pretty cute. And these are eyes that Sherry made. So you get those in your kit, which I think is pretty awesome. And I can't read this. Sherry and Gilson, I think. So you can look her up, and I believe she sells these eyes. They're kind of a pretty green yellow, which makes sense for a flower fairy. So that's a nice kind of special thing to get in the kit. I mean, you can obviously go to the fabric store and buy a piece of bias tape or buy silk flowers, but those are nice to get. You also get a few flowers, which she kind of shows how to use, but you can also use other things. I don't remember what this wire is for. Again, it would have been nice to have a packing list so that we'd know exactly what everything is. I think April mentions this in the video, that these are for antenna, but I don't think either of them use them. I'm not sure about that. This is for hair, and they don't show how to use this for making the hair. Somebody did refer to a video that April put online showing how she did hair, but even that video kind of had details left out. This is a pretty cool product, and there actually is an information sheet in here, so that's helpful, because it's something I was totally unfamiliar with. Is China paint, and it's a powder. And I guess it's... You could see the teeny tiny amount you get in there, but she says it's very, very concentrated. It's often used on porcelain and china dolls and plates. So if you like them, they show you where you can purchase more. So I think that's everything you get in the kit. Now let me talk a little bit more about the instruction, because for the price that you pay, really the instruction is the most valuable thing. I mean, you know, most of these things, with the exception of the eyes, the china paint, you know, these things and the wire and the batting, I have around my house. I have clay, although I'm excited to try this brand, which you can't find in like Michael's or anything. You have to order it online. Yeah, these things, you know, these, I have all of these in my house that I could assemble, but it's nice to kind of have it all assembled for you. Really, I think the most valuable thing is the instruction. Now, when I watched the DVDs, I was a little bit dismayed. I hadn't yet gotten the information to log into the online course, and the DVDs seemed rather disorganized to me. They don't have any chapters on them. So if you just had the DVDs, you could find it very frustrating. You might have to make your own notations as to where the sculpting for the head is and where the sculpting for the hands is, and where the costuming. Oh, and I missed this one, speaking of costumes. This also came in the kit, which is kind of fun, this fabric. It was interesting. Sherry and April used this a little bit differently in their two projects, so I thought it was kind of fun to see different ways that they did the costuming. Oh, that's what this wire's for. I just remembered. This is for making the wings. That's right. Sherry shows a really cool way that she used, that she makes wings. Back to the DVDs. I thought it was a little bit confusing. It was all mixed up. So I was really happy when I went online and I was able to download my Armature Pattern, because I was looking at the DVD like, what? So I was able to download and print this. And online you have everything that's on these two DVDs plus some. Online you have directions for building your armature. You have a few more things that were missing in the DVDs. The only thing that I was hoping to find online that I didn't was how to put the hair on the doll. Everything else was there, and it was separated into sections, so you could see April making the head, part 1, April making the head, part 2, Sherry making the hands, April making the hands, and so on. So it was much better organized online. So if you're not online, if you're in a situation where you don't have internet access, the DVDs are a great resource, but hopefully you'll be able to access the online information and have it a little bit more easily accessible and organized. So I'm going to take my kit and have a little fun and build myself a flower pixie. So here's my little flower pixie, mostly done. It was a cute little project to make. I'm not 100% thrilled with it. I think largely because, not because there was anything wrong with the box, but just because it wasn't my own project and I didn't really have my own clear vision for what I wanted to do with it. So I just sort of used what they had and used some of their suggestions, changed some things to do it my way, and I suspect if I were to use the hands and the head and the shoes and remake it in my own vision, I'd probably be much happier. That being said, it was a really cute project, a great way to get into sculpting if it's not something you've done before and you could use some direction. The instructions were excellent, I thought. As I said, Sherry and April both teach most of the parts. There's some things that you only get one of. April tends to zoom in very closely but not explain every detail she does. And Sherry explains in great detail, which is fantastic, but she is quite zoomed out, so you can't always see it. So between the two of them, I thought it was a pretty good learning experience. There were a few things I didn't explain how to do, like how to use the hair. I've wigged dolls before, although you couldn't tell by this one. I was kind of in a rush to get this done so I could do the video. I didn't put the wings on because they're not dry. I sort of followed Sherry's directions for making the wings, but then ended up using PBOs, and they're not dry. So yeah, that'll have to come later. Just to show you what I had left over, I had this much of the clay left. So that's like all I used. So you can definitely make a lot more. Use it if you're new to sculpting, then, and this is just press and seal, that will protect it. If you're new to sculpting, don't be afraid to practice. I've sculpted many heads and faces. Well, not many. A good handful. And this was my 4th go, and I still wasn't 100% happy with it. I will warn you, I tried something that they suggested in the videos, and I've seen suggested before, which was to get your face to where you want it and then take a heat gun and heat set it before moving on to the next step. That's a great idea because then you set your features and you can't wreck them. However, what you can do is forget that it's just the surface that's cured and that the clay underneath will still move. And when you forget about that and start squishing and pressing, you end up with cracks, which really showed up through this China paint, the blue and green powders that I showed you earlier. That's what's used to paint the hands and the face. I opted to just do plain clay boots, and I didn't cover them with the seam binding. But Sherry shows you how to do that. So you have little cloth boots. So his forehead, I think it looks like a little man. His forehead is kind of a mess. So do be warned of that if you're heavy-handed, which I can tend to be, and I get lost in what I'm doing, and I forget that I'm holding it, and I end up mashing it, I think I prefer to do my usual method, which is to just do a full bake in between every step and not the partial baking. I'm sure if you're doing production work, their way saves a lot of time. So I thought I'd show you what I had left over from this project. I didn't use this for the boots. That fine wire was for the wings. This was all I had left of the foil tape, and that was a pretty good method for making an armature. I'd never done it that way before. I liked it. I didn't use much of this. I only used a little tiny bit. So this will go in my doll making supplies. I used most of the fur for wigging, although I don't know that I would use this again for wigging. I've done other things. Little bits of the flowers left. I used a little bit of, I think I have a tiny bit of the China paint left. I don't know where I put that. Neither Sherry nor April showed how to use these little antennae. I'm not even sure what this is actually. Yeah, I think these are meant to be for antennae because they had in mind to make sort of a bug-like creature. But neither of them showed how to use them, and I didn't think of it either. Although Sherry shows how to sculpt on little antennae on her creature. Can you see it? Oh, well, now in the photo they're on. Okay. But they don't show it in the video that I saw at all. And almost enough wire left to make another one. And lots of clay. I loved using the eyes. That was really cool. So all in all, if you're learning how to sculpt and you want to learn how to sculpt figures and you like having all the materials assembled for you, then I'd recommend it. I think it's a fun thing to get in the mail, a fun project. Since you spent money on it, it's kind of an incentive to practice and work on these things. So thank you so much to April for sending along the Sculpt box for me to try out. It was a fun little project, and I enjoyed learning a few tips and tricks that I didn't know already. So if you enjoyed this video and you're interested in Sculpt boxes, go to my blog post where I will have a link for how you can get one yourself. Thanks so much for watching. Happy creating. Bye-bye.